Hi everyone, I am Sister Runita Borja and I am the General Counselor for Youth Ministry. I would like to share with you my reflection on the 24th General Chapter of the Daughters of Mary Help of Christians from the perspective of youth ministry. I am going to follow this outline. First point, Don Bosco leads the way. Second point, the Church's mission at the service of all. Third point, the 24th General Chapter of the Daughters of Mary Help of Christians. Fourth, Synodality, the way of communion. Fifth, discernment for a response appropriate to the times. Sixth, transmitting hope and promoting life. And seventh, priority choices of the 24th General Chapter. Formation, missionary synodality, integral ecology. Since this sharing is about the perspective of youth ministry, we have to understand what we mean when we say ministry. And for that, I would like to take us back to the beginning of the Salesian family, the Salesian charism that is now spread out throughout the world. Pope Francis will help us understand who Don Bosco is, and then afterwards we will add the figure of Mary Mazzarello, because I would like to go back to some words that Pope Francis spoke at the Angelus on January 30 of this year, the day before the liturgical feast of St. John Bosco. He said, "On the eve of the feast of St. John Bosco, I would like to greet the Salesians and Salesian women who do so much good in the church. We think of this great saint, father and teacher of the young. He did not shut himself up in the sacristy. He did not close himself off in his own things. He went out into the streets to look for young people with the creativity that was his hallmark. Best wishes to all Salesians." You see that particular sentence on this extract from the Angelus message of Pope Francis is in bold letters. Why? Because I think it sums up the originality of Don Bosco, that he was way ahead of his times. However, being way ahead of these times, I think brings Don Bosco back to Jesus, because in a way, he applied in his life what Jesus lived during his earthly life. So, since we want to talk about ministry, in order to understand ministry, we have to talk about vocation and mission. Because a person engaged in ministry is not a person who auto-assumes that mission. Rather, that person is a person called by God. When Don Bosco understood his mission, the first time that God communicated to Don Bosco his mission in life, it was when he had this dream at 9 years old. And there, the figure of Christ as the Good Shepherd is very visible. And of course, when we want to talk about Christ as the Good Shepherd, we go back to the Gospel of John, because there he gives us a particular description of what or who the Good Shepherd is. It says that, John says that, actually Jesus says that the Good Shepherd knows his sheep and is known by the sheep. He looks for other sheep outside and leads them to the fold. He has a special preference for the weakest. He lays down his life for his sheep. In short, the Good Shepherd has these qualities of compassion, care, intuition, and engagement. The vocation is for a mission. And what is the mission? What was the mission entrusted by God to Don Bosco? The transformation from ferocious animals to meek lambs. No, I don't know whether, I hope we are all familiar with the Dream at Nine, no? Since we are sisters, we are lay Salesian co-partners, collaborators in the mission. We are young people in the Salesian ministry, or maybe some Salesians also. No, we know that this mission of Don Bosco, as I said earlier, he understood, when he looked back at his life, he understood that the first time God revealed to him his mission was when he had the dream at 9 years of age. Here you see the photo. No, I will not tell the story anymore, but we know that the mission is to help in the transformation of youngsters, no? From ignorant, from aggressive, from violent youngsters to God-fearing, to gentle, and to educated, good citizens of society, good Christians. No? And the image used at the Dream at Nine was the transformation of ferocious animals to meek lambs. And what is important is that in this ministry of Don Bosco, which he shares with us now in the Salesian family, we do it in a particular style, which we call the preventive system. No? It is very unique. And in the Dream at Nine, Jesus himself revealed to Don Bosco this particular style, not with blows, but with gentleness and kindness. Show them that sin is ugly and virtue beautiful. And in order to live out this style, to use this style, we need the three pillars of reason, religion or faith, and loving kindness. So in order to understand our mission as Salesians, because all of us are Salesians, no? All of us in the Salesian family, we go back to the time when Don Bosco and Mary Mazzarello understood the call and the mission. We go back to the Dream at Nine for Don Bosco, and we go back to the vision at the Borgo Alto for Mary Mazzarello. No? We believe that the vocation or the call is for a mission. When God calls, he calls that person for a particular mission. For Don Bosco, he says that figure in his Dream at Nine called him by name and told him to place himself as leader over those boys. Huh? Guide, leader. That was his mission. That was the reason he was called by God. Instead, for Mary Mazzarello, it happened when she had that vision at the Borgo Alto. Borgo Alto is a small street. No? Those of you who have gone to Mornese, or who, hopefully all of us will have that joy of going to Mornese, it's a hilly part, no? Close to where the actual Colegio, which was our first house as a congregation, is now located. No? Mary Mazzarello herself recounts the story. She says, one day, as she passed the Borgo Alto hillock, she suddenly saw before her a set of buildings that appeared to be an institute filled with numerous young women. She stopped to look. Full of amazement, she said to herself, I have never seen anything like this before. This building never existed here. What's happening? And then she heard a voice, I entrust them to you. So for these two people, the founders of our institute, this two instances were very precise entrustment of a mission. And they share this with all of us. God equips the one he calls, no? We don't know why God called us here in the Salesian family, but we know we have a mission. And for that mission, God gives us the qualities. God gives us what we need. Do you remember that in the call of the prophet Jeremiah, no? At first, Jeremiah said, I'm very young. How can I speak in front of all those people? The Lord replied to him, do not say, I am too young. You must go to everyone I send you to and say whatever I command you. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you and will rescue you. Then the Lord reached out his hand and touched my mouth and said to me, I have put my words in your mouth. No? So here, I think this is a call for all of us to believe. No? Sometimes we doubt our capacity, sometimes we doubt also our authenticity as as carriers of a mission. No? We tell ourselves, how can I be a good Salesian when I cannot even free myself of some of my defects, some of my limitations? My dear friends, this is an ongoing journey. We believe, let us believe, no? That since God called us for a mission, he will give us the necessary tools, no? In order to carry out that mission. And therefore, it is very important that the person has an intimate and personal relationship with God, because fidelity to the mission depends on our fidelity to God. In his other dreams, Don Bosco saw that the sheep become shepherds themselves. This is something very interesting, because actually Don Bosco did not only have one dream, the dream at night. No? We know him as a man of dreams, and he had several dreams with the theme of the Good Shepherd. No? And we say here, in some of those dreams, he saw the sheep become shepherds themselves. What does it mean? It means that in our mission, the young people themselves become good influences and catalysts of positive change. And I think we have to work for this. Huh? Let us not be happy that our young people are just followers. No? Let us accompany them together as a community so that they may become good leaders of other young people too, and discover their own vocations. Why not? Maybe even in religious life. In fact, some of the first daughters of Mary Hope of Christians were girls at the workroom, where Mother Madsarel and Petronila began to teach them sewing. Or some were lay teachers in the school at Mornese. The Salesian congregation started with Don Bosco and a group of youngsters who were formed in his oratory. That is something unique and original about the Salesian congregation. The Salesian charism, I know you know this, but this is founded on and renewed and strengthened by the Christian faith, no? The evangelical values, but it is applicable to all cultures. In fact, the Salesian charism is spread throughout the world in multicultural and multi-religious societies. In countries where the Christian faith are a minority or even persecuted, the Salesian family is present, offering different forms of service, but whatever form of service it is always inspired by the gospel. It always has its roots in the gospel, no? And that is our way of, I think, spreading the gospel, no, by our presence. Because whether we are in a majority Christian country or a non-Christian country, our presence, our style of education becomes a light inspired by the gospel. So this mission was entrusted by God to Don Bosco, and it continues in the world right now. And our mission is a participation in the mission of the church. Now, as I said, even in places where let's say the hierarchical church cannot be present, our presence there in that place ensures the presence of the church as the people of God. In Gaudium et Spes number 1, we read this first sentence: the joys and the hopes, the griefs and the anxieties of the men of this age, especially those who are poor or in any way afflicted, these are the joys and hopes, the griefs and anxieties of the followers of Christ. I think these words open the doors. Open also our eyes that we in the Salesian family, since we are an expression of church, our service is not only for Christians or for the people who are within the Salesian, let's say the Salesian garden or the Salesian institution. No? We are at the service of the world. Therefore, Vatican Council II reclaims the church's identity to be light, salt, and leaven of the world. Reminds us that as church, our role is not only to nourish the people who are already inside the church or to proselytize people so that we have a good number of members of the church. No, our mission is to become light, salt, and leaven of the world. Therefore, it is a more inclusive understanding and vision of the church's mission expressed in its various ministries. Whatever ministry we are engaged in, it should be open to all. It should be an expression of us being light, salt, and leaven of the world. You see there the title, The Church's Mission at the Service of All. Jesus founded the church as a community of people called by him to continue his mission of compassion. From the Gospel of Mark, we read, when Jesus disembarked and saw the vast crowd, his heart was moved with pity for them, for they were like sheep without a shepherd. We are called to continue Jesus' mission of inclusion. From the Gospel of John. Then Jesus stood up again and said to the woman, where are your accusers? Didn't even one of them condemn you? No, Lord, she said. And Jesus said, neither do I. Go and sin no more. We are called to continue Jesus' mission of intercession, praying for others. And from the Gospel of Luke, Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. And they divided up his clothes by casting lots. This one, I think, is very important. No? Those soldiers were there. They were indifferent to the suffering of Jesus there on the cross. They continued their casting of lots while Jesus was praying for them and even telling the Father, forgive them because they don't know what they are doing. This is the mission of interceding for people. Instead of condemning them, we don't agree with what they do, but instead of condemning them, we pray for them because, as Jesus said, maybe they don't know what they are doing. Only God knows what is in the heart of people. So, and lastly, we are called to continue his mission of proclamation. From Matthew, Jesus went round the whole of Galilee, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and curing all kinds of disease and illness among the people. No? Here, it's beautiful. The mission of proclamation means proclaiming the good news of the kingdom. And when we proclaim the good news, it doesn't mean we preach only by words. By our attitudes, by our style of life, we become proclaimers of the good news of the kingdom. Then curing all kinds of disease, all the disabilities, no, of people, and that's not only physical disabilities, no, but maybe emotional disabilities, lack of love, lack of forgiveness, lack of openness to others. These are all diseases because these things make us our lives ill at ease. Huh? And so when we say proclamation, it's not only preaching, but it's also it's preaching, but it's preaching not only with words, but preaching with our lives. So I think it's very important to remember this, that we as a community of followers of Jesus are called to continue his mission of compassion, inclusion, intercession, and proclamations. Sometimes we reduce our being Christians as just following the Ten Commandments or going to our Sunday obligations or proclaiming by our words the good news by teaching catechism, by, I don't know, being a lector in the church. These are good, but our role, our way of following Jesus is not limited to these short acts. No? Rather, it's to continue his compassion, his inclusion, his intercession, and his proclamation. The pontificate of Pope Francis is characterized by gestures and initiatives that reach people and realities outside the Catholic Church, so as to weave alliances in favor of life, of a quality life for all. Pope Francis says in his homily at the beginning of his ministry as Pope, to protect Jesus with Mary, to protect the whole of creation, to protect each person, especially the poorest, to protect ourselves. This is a service that the Bishop of Rome is called to carry out, yet one to which all of us are called, so that the star of hope will shine brightly. Let us protect with love all that God has given us. No? Pope Francis uses this word very frequently throughout the years of his pontificate, to protect, to take care of. No? That is our prime responsibility as Christians, to take care of what God has given us. Last September 12th to October 24th of year 2021, the Daughters of Mary Help of Christians had its 24th General Chapter. What is a General Chapter? It is a meeting of representatives of our presences in the whole world. No? It's a very important occasion in the life of every religious congregation, because through the meeting of these representatives of the different communities, no, of the Daughters of Mary Help of Christians in the world, first they elect the new council, which becomes the center of governance and animation. And second, they discuss the direction that the Institute is going to take for the next 6 years. So this is very, very important. It is an important expression of collegiality in our institute. So in this case, in our 24th General Chapter, we were 172 representatives, no, of the different communities in the world. Each participant brought with her the hopes, the experiences, the realities, and the good practices of the educating communities of the Daughters of Mary Help of Christians in the world, precisely in 97 nations. The presence of Mary was very much felt throughout the preparation and the chapter time itself. In fact, the gospel text of the wedding at Cana guided the various reflections of the chapter assembly. And the final document is also expressed this way: with Mary be a life-giving presence. In this chapter gathering and in the meetings online or face-to-face, in preparation to the chapter, we realize the importance of presence. No? Just a little parenthesis. Presence is very important in our Salesian charism. No? Sometimes we say the word assistance, no? But presence of the adult together with a young person is very important, and it is actually a key to the effectiveness of the preventive system. No? Okay, let's go back to the chapter. We want our educating communities to be a presence that generates, takes care of, and promotes life. Presence is actually a cry of the world. In this time of the pandemic, we read several studies about the impact of the pandemic in the lives, especially of the children, the adolescents, and the young people. And they miss, one thing is common to all, they miss the physical presence. No? Despite the let's say, the possibilities that online meetings or online interactions provide us, people feel that something is missing. And that something is the physical presence of a person or of persons. But what kind of presence are we talking about here? It's a listening presence. It's a presence that is journeying together. It's a presence that is not only within our own walls, but it's outgoing and networking. The chapter affirms that it is fundamental to reclaim the prophecy of presence assumed by Don Bosco and Mother Mazzarello and consigned or entrusted to us with the Salesian charism. From the experience of the general chapter, I have grouped under 3 categories the qualities of youth ministry according to what we have lived and according to what we have reflected upon. You read it here as content and as lived experience. So I think the 3 qualities are this. First, it should be a synodal youth ministry, the way of communion. Second, it is a ministry that is in a state of discernment, so as to have a response appropriate to the times. And third, it should be a youth ministry for hope and for life. That is, a ministry that transmits hope and promotes life. No? I think discernment is very, very, like synodality, discernment, hope, and life. These should be the qualities of our ministries, whether with a small group of kids or whether with all the kids in the school or the young people or in the families, etc. This should be the qualities of our youth ministry. I say, again, I repeat, as I have lived it in the whole chapter experience and as we have reflected upon during the chapter experience. Synodality and way of communion, how did we live it? Actually, from the preparatory phase of the chapter, we have engaged a great number of people. The theme was chosen from all the suggestions given by the interprovincial conferences. So the theme was not something that the General Council thought of and gave to all the communities. No, the communities and then the provinces and then the interprovincial conferences sent to us their suggestions, and then we tried to see the commonalities and everything until we came up with the suggested theme for the chapter. The reflection which led to the working document was also a reflection shared at different levels with educating communities. Probably some of you have also participated in the reflections on the working document. So with the presence of young people, lay collaborators at the local, provincial, and interprovincial conferences. Another sign of synodality, of engaging a greater number of people, was during the drafting of the working document. An international team of FMAs gathered in Rome to draft the working document. And then it was also shown to several people, no, for their feedback, for their suggestions. And the working document was the object of reflection and sharing of the educating communities once again at different levels, local, provincial, and interprovincial conferences. So you will see, even from its preparatory phase, we tried to live this synodality as a way of communion. During the chapter itself, it was an experience of synodality. How? Because we have welcomed diversity. It was very visible that we come from different contexts, we are of different generations, we come from different ministries. So it's beautiful to live that solidarity. Second, there was a freedom to express oneself, to share, to feel heard. During the chapter, during the assembly time at the chapter, no, each of us who wanted to speak was given 3 minutes, whether you are a young sister from this country or you are a part of the General Council. Everybody had the right to speak for 3 minutes. Another, internationality and interculturality, appreciation and recognition of the diversity of gifts. There was also responsible participation and sufficient time to share, live, and work, creating an environment characterized by the family spirit. So, a synodal youth ministry means that all of us feel that we are responsible. It's not only the sister who is in charge or the leader of the group. No, all of us are responsible. We share the mission according to our particular vocation, whether as a young person, a leader, a teacher, a catechist, a guidance counselor, parent, chaplain, religious sister, etc. All the other roles, all of us converged in the mission. So we need to value the presence, the mission, the role, and the contribution of each member of the educating community. No? So you remember that when Paul speaks of the body, the church as the body of Christ, that when one body is sick or when one body is missing or not functioning well, the whole body feels it because each part of the body has a contribution to the whole. And this is what an educating community means. No? Each of us has our own particular contribution. However, in order to take care of the growth of communion in the educating community, we have to take care of different dimensions. No? This educating community has to have time for praying together, for fellowship, no, gathering together, for parties, just to enjoy the company of each other. This educating community has to have time for formation together, no? This ongoing learning that will be helpful for us together to live out our vocation. And lastly, another dimension is service, no? As an educating community to serve together, no? When we focus only on one dimension, we don't build a community. Even if our group is very big, very good in service, if we don't know each other, there's no sense of belonging in that community. Instead, when all we do in our group is to have a party, to join, to have gathering together just to enjoy our company, there's something lacking. There's no purpose in that group. So afterwards, our gathering will become what? Maybe a gathering where we just comment negatively on others, or where we just air out our petty experiences, our complaints. No? So when one of these four dimensions is missing, we do not build an educating community according to the mind of Don Bosco and Mother Mazzarello. In this synodal youth ministry, young people are protagonists. I don't mean that as adults we don't say anything. No. As adults, we are called to guide and to accompany. What I mean here is that children, adolescents, and youth are not mere recipients of what we adults have planned. They are to be listened to and engaged in the experiences offered to them. Only through this can we educate them to critical thinking, creativity, responsibility, and leadership. And then this becomes a workshop of present and future leaders. When we engage young people to become leaders in their own little way, no? Starting from maybe a smaller group. No, we have our eyes and we see we can accompany. We don't do what they can do. Then they become more confident about themselves and they learn from our examples. They learn to take responsibility. They learn also to admit failures. And this becomes then a very important experience in the training of present and future leaders. People who can engage, people who can collaborate, people who are creative, people who take chances, people who are audacious, people who take responsibility, people who admit when they fail, but who do not remain there in that situation, but rather, again, let's rise up. No? So when young people feel that they are protagonists, they become more engaged in the life of our community. Remember our strena for 2022, do all through love, nothing through constraint. Let us look at young people with eyes of compassion, but also of admiration. All of us were young people ourselves. No? We also passed that age. So let us have eyes of compassion on them, but at the same time, let us look at the possibilities that all of them can still do given the proper opportunities. You know, let us not be adults who are bitter and therefore we don't want our young people to rise up. No? Sometimes there are adults who are bitter about their youth. And so they look at young people as a threat to themselves and they don't want these young people to grow. No. That's why let's go back again to the importance of community. No? People surrounding us with good vibes, with good visions, and our relationship also with Jesus. Because through this support that we have, we are able to also purify our way of looking at young people. From Christus Vivit, Pope Francis's apostolic exhortation, he says, youth as a phase in the development of the personality is marked by dreams which gather momentum, by relationships which acquire more and more consistency and balance, by trials and experiments, and by choices which gradually build a life project. Of course, young people don't still have an complete understanding of themselves. That is their phase in life. They're still trying to figure out themselves. No? Let us be compassionate with them. Let us not use our measurements that we use for ourselves to measure them. No? Remember this phase of life. No? The Pope says that they are still gradually building a life project. And in 139, he says, to talk about young people is to talk about promise and to talk about joy. How wonderful. Not to talk about problems. Not to talk about disillusionment. No, talk about joy and promise. Young people have so much strength. They are able to look ahead with hope. A young person is a promise of life that implies a certain degree of tenacity. He is foolish enough to delude himself and resilient enough to recover from that delusion, hopefully with the help of adults. So what do we mean by a synodal youth ministry? Again, I use here the word inclusion. Our Salesian environments should be open to all, especially to the poorest and those without other opportunities. The Salesian charism always gives a preferential option to those who are in a marginalized, disadvantaged position. And when we talk about poverty, we don't only talk about economic poverty. There are so many forms of poverty. Another way is by creating alliances. No? We cannot do it by ourselves. No? This is one thing that Pope Francis is really forging ahead. Forging alliances not only within the church, but also with other people of goodwill. People who are maybe not believers in God, but they have good intentions to build society. No? So when we say creating alliances, let us create it within our educating communities, with the territory, and with the world. Our synodal youth ministry is also intercultural, interreligious, intergenerational. No? In all our Salesian environments, we see the meeting of cultures. No? There is no city or no place where we do not see the meeting of cultures. And it's a beautiful thing. Of course, it has its own challenges, but it's beautiful because it's enriching. It's also interreligious. We have many oratories in the world where we have young people who are from other religions who are non-believers. Our youth ministry is also intergenerational because by the fact that it is the educating community that is engaged in the mission. So we see there different generations, and it's wonderful to see when there is an alliance between generations. Pope Francis always hammers on this, no? Young people can learn a lot from adults and from the elderly. The elderly have a lot of wisdom to give us, no? And there are so many experiences of experiments where the life of an elderly person becomes better when that person is in contact with children and vice versa. And so this intergenerational alliance is very interesting and very enriching. And communion assures continuity. No? The work does not stop when the founder is dead, dies, or is transferred to another mission. When we build the educating community at the service of the mission, then whether there will be changes in the people who are at the head, the mission will continue because others have been formed. Others have assumed the mission as an expression of their vocation. Okay, so the second quality of our youth ministry, according to my chapter experience and also according to the reflections that we had at the chapter, is that we should always be engaged in discernment in order to respond according to the times, no? Maybe some of you are teachers and we keep all of these lesson plans, I don't know, or you prepare, no? Your materials. But when we no longer engage ourselves in renewing our materials, in renewing our lesson plans, in renewing our style of teaching, then that mission does not serve its purpose. The time in the classroom becomes a time of, let's say, a time of difficulty, both for the teacher and for the students. The same in any group life. The same in any community. That's why we have to engage in discernment. No? In his Angelus message that we have read at the beginning, Pope Francis mentioned that creativity was the hallmark of Don Bosco's ministry. He did not just repeat what was traditional and acceptable. Creativity is energy. It's an interior capacity to cultivate dreams of fraternity and to be seeds of hope. No? Remember that passage in the Bible that says, God says, I'm creating new things. Don't you see it? Can't you see it? I think that's what discernment is all about. Discernment is seeing the good that God continues to recreate. Notwithstanding all the bad things that are happening, God continues to create and recreate. Discernment is also prudence. No? It is docility to the Holy Spirit, creator and creative, that suggests new ideas appropriate and suitable to the needs of the times. Now, discernment, my dear friends, is not only personal discernment. Discernment is something that we should really have as style of living our personal lives, but also our communities. No? In the youth ministry, for example, the educating community, the team, they have to be engaged in discernment for this appropriate response to the times. There are three interdependent phases in the discernment process: recognize, interpret, and choose. And my dear friends, we don't finish the discernment process with choose. Because if we take on discernment as a style of life, then after choose, you go back to recognize, interpret, and choose. So it becomes a cycle. No? So we don't just act. Sometimes immediately we go to choose. How will I react? What will I do? Without even understanding what is the situation, what is the problem, and interpreting the problem according to my principles, according to our mission statement, etc. So as what I'm saying here is that these three interdependent phases of the discernment process form a cycle that continues and continues. Recognize. When we say recognize, we mean that attention is focused on the reality, not on our interpretation of the reality, but on the reality. We need to be very, very concrete here, to be realistic, and even to, without making any judgments yet, accept what is true, what is real, what is concrete. It is like making a diagnosis, seeing the positive and the negative, the opportunities and the threats. It is important, however, to remember that reality is multifaceted and diverse. It has different factors, and all of these factors are in an interplay. It is also an interplay of factors that affect each other and cause the presence of different situations. It means that we see that maybe if this factor is taken out of the equation, the product will be different. No? So we have to not oversimplify things. That is the recognized part. Now let's go to the second phase, interpret. So guided by the word of God, the journey of the church, the charism, the culture and traditions, the values and religiosity of the people, we try to see what are the resources present in our context as well as the challenges. God, as I said, God equips us, but we have to have eyes to see this. And so in the interpret process, we try to see this. What are our resources? And how can we use these resources to face the challenges? Before we go to the third phase, which is choose, okay? Don't jump immediately to choose. Because when we jump immediately to choose without understanding the reality, then maybe what we choose will never have an impact on or change the reality because it is not well thought of. The dream of God for each person and for the whole of creation is fullness of life. Remember this, my friends. His dream is for us to be happy, to live a life with purpose and meaning. So between this dream and the reality of the socio-cultural context, there is a distance that we want to bridge. No? So this is the reality. And this is the dream of God for us, to be happy, to have meaningful lives. There is this abyss that has to be bridged. And so we hope, we try to think of choices that will be able to act as a bridge to make the distance a little bit smaller, or if possible, to really bridge the distance between the reality and the dream of God for us. We need to value and use the resources that we have identified in the interpretation phase. And at the same time, we need to be attentive to the challenges that we have also identified in the interpretation phase. Okay, the third quality of youth ministry. So the first was synodal. Second, discernment. The third is transmitting hope and promoting life. This is our style of youth ministry, my friends. Beautiful and fascinating. In our Salesian tradition and in everyday experience of the mission, we believe that our mission to help young people have and experience fullness of life is something that is shared in the educating community. So all of us, this is again in order to hammer in on us that we are sharing this mission in the educating community. The educating community creates the environment. It's not only the sister principal, or it's not only the club animator. No, all of us together, even the lady or the person who cleans the bathrooms, who, I don't know, who sells food in the canteen, everybody, all of us create the environment and makes it conducive to education. All of us together, lay women and men collaborators, Salesian sisters, young people, create this environment. Because this environment plays a big role in education. Each one has something to offer and something to receive. Pope Leo XIII said that no one is so rich that he does not need another's help. No one is so poor as not to be useful in some way to his fellow man. Beautiful. Even I cannot give anything because I have very little. No, if you don't give that little, nobody can take your place. No? Each one of us has something to give. What is important is to give from the heart. No? What Jesus said when he saw that widow putting in a very small coin in the collection box. She gave everything. She gave from the heart. She gave whatever she had. The educating community is a very concrete expression in reality of the global alliance that Pope Francis invites us to forge for the good of the younger generations. Indeed, all of us, members of the educating community, with our diverse characteristics, we are all united by the common mission of providing integral education or formation so that children, adolescents, and young people may discover the meaning and the beauty of life. Thus, live their lives with sense and purpose. Does this not give you goosebumps? How important your role is in the life of these children, young people, adolescents who come, and even in the life of each one of us in the educating community. The theme of the 24th General Chapter expresses clearly this attention to life. No? What was the theme of our General Chapter? Do whatever he tells you. Communities that generate life in the heart of contemporaneity. The final document is also expressed this way. With Mary, be a life-giving presence. Beautiful. We are all called to give life in the midst of the culture of death that is present. No? When we say promoting life, it doesn't mean taking away all suffering and pain, because suffering, pain also have their own role in strengthening our life and making our lives be experiences of depth. No? So the whole general chapter experience is an expression of our vocation that urges us to go out to children, young people of the working class, especially the poorest. The priority choices express this attention to all, but especially the poorest and most marginalized. Therefore, a ministry that is more inclusive, that creates more alliances and networking, that goes outside the comforts of ecclesial and social structure. A ministry that is more global in vision and attention. From Juvenum Patris, the letter of Pope John Paul II in 1988, he said, Don Bosco's particular secret was not to disappoint the profound aspirations of young people. Their need for life, love, expansion, joy, freedom, the future. And at the same time, to bring them gradually and realistically to experience that only in the life of grace, that is, in friendship with Christ, the most authentic ideals are fully realized. My dear friends, I'd like to underscore here the words gradually and realistically. No? We cannot force young people to be friends with Christ, but what we can do is that we can create an environment where this is possible. We can witness to what friendship with Christ means to us, so that even without forcing young people, they are able to capture it and it becomes a part of their lives. I have the joy of listening to many of my past pupils who said, you know, sister, I only realize now all the things that we were doing when we were in the school, all the things that you were telling us, no? All the experiences that we had together. So it takes time. No? As I said earlier, we are just sowing seeds. God knows the right time when that seed will come to fruition. So that from the perspective of youth ministry, that is of our care and accompaniment of children, adolescents, and young people, the most basic ways we can keep hope alive for their present and their future are having a grounded identity, an experience of community, and living at the service of others. Here again, I remind you, youth ministry means taking care and accompanying children, adolescents, and young people. This is what integral education is all about. And it is for young people and all the members of the educating community. Integral education means forming their minds, not forming in terms of giving them, I don't know, forming ideologies. No, the formation of the mind means that they acquire principles, convictions, and the correct history, not a version that is corrected or revised according to the mindset of some ideologies. No, we have to form the mind. Second, forming the heart, forming young people with compassion, with sensitivity, with respect, with justice, and forming their hands and feet, which means that they express their principles and convictions by living an ethical lifestyle, by service, especially those who are most in need, and by exercising their citizenship. This is what integral education is all about. Forming the mind, forming the heart, forming the hands and feet together, okay? When the mind is too big, it's a monster. When the heart is too big, it's also a monster. When the hands and the feet are too big, we also create a monster. So we have to create to accompany young people to become persons with equilibrium. The mind, the heart, the hands and feet. So I would like to now share with you the priority choices of our 24th General Chapter, and they are along 3 lines: formation, missionary, synodality, and integral ecology. The 24th General Chapter arrived at 3 priority choices for the Institute for these 6 years, 2022 to 2027. And these choices are not only for the FMA communities, rather, they give a common direction to our mission. So whether you are in the United States or in Kenya or in Japan or in India or in the Middle East or in Mozambique, in whichever, or in Chile, in Argentina, in all parts of the world where we are present, we are going through the same journey and headed to the same direction. The focus is the same, but the concretization is diverse and is suited to the particular context. These priority choices are going to be realized and carried out by the different sectors of animation, each from its own perspective. Okay, when we talk here of the different sectors of animation, no, in our institute, the animation is divided according to different perspectives. No? There's the formation, there is the youth ministry, there is the Salesian family, missions, communications, and administration. Okay, so here we are focused on youth ministry. The youth ministry sector of your province will work on the priority choices as they relate to, first, the different expressions of the Salesian mission in the province. So, do you have schools, youth or children's clubs or groups, catechesis, camps, retreat centers, vocation animation, BDES, etc.? And the formation and consolidation of the educating communities. Okay, I'll try to make a synthesis of this. So these 3 priority choices are going to be put into concrete lines of action by the youth ministry of your province as it relates to the particular context where we are with young people, no? And the formation and consolidation of the educating communities. The other sectors will work according to their line of, according to their configuration, no, of their sector. So the first, formation for a renewed vocational impetus. Our Acts of the General Chapter says, let us revive and witness together to the beauty of the Salesian vocation by placing ourselves in a state of ongoing formation for a renewed vocational impetus. Therefore, a new style of formation at all levels, starting from and is rooted in life experience. I would say that for us, a new style of educating young people, no? One that starts from or honors the reality rooted in life experience. Second, by renewing Salesian assistance, or the presence of us, adults and young people themselves, in places where young people are. Next, a youth ministry that gives importance to accompanying young people to discover their life project through the presence of capable adults of the educating community. The adult's life becomes a sign of what is possible. Identity building with a special focus on affectivity, sexuality, freedom, and responsibility. So that's the first priority choice. Second priority choice. I'm just repeating here what is written in the Acts of the chapter, okay? We assume missionary synodality as a lifestyle that generates new ways of participation, animation, and governance. Okay, so we speak of the prophecy of communion, journeying together, co-responsibility, subsidiarity, and planning mentality. So how do we apply that in the different places where young people are and in our educating communities? This is the focus of the youth ministry sector, okay? Generative leadership, a type of leadership that gives birth to leaders. Redesigning physical and organizational structures to be at the service of the mission. Our organizational chart. Our physical structures also. Culture of communication. And then the last, integral ecology as a response to the cry of the poor, of the youth, and of the earth. We listen to the cry of the poor and of the earth in order to make courageous evangelical choices as networked educating communities in the perspective of integral ecology. Integral ecology as a lifestyle and a dimension of the educational mission. It is a holistic approach as we strive for total sustainability, response to the cry of the earth, response to the cry of the poor, ecological economics, adoption of sustainable lifestyles, ecological education, ecological spirituality, community resilience, and empowerment. Evangelization in its many forms, which is always attentive to the reality and context. Openness to young people and how they challenge and renew our mission. The Global Compact on Education means forging alliances with others because it takes a village to raise a child. A sustainable economy as a way of witnessing and to give voice to the poorest and marginalized people whom we encounter in our mission. The 24th General Chapter also made this commitment. The chapter assembly let itself to be questioned by the cry of the young, of the poor, and of the earth, and decided to involve the whole institute in a concrete and continuous journey of conversion to integral ecology, assuming in network the 7 objectives of Laudato Si in the spirit of the preventive system. Huh? Okay, this is a call of Pope Francis, not only to the church, but to the whole world, to go through this 7-year journey of sustainability in order to respond to the cry of the poor and of the earth. And our institute has adhered to this through this commitment and also by signing this pledge to go through the 7-year journey. I'm sure that many of your schools, your clubs, your other places, communities have also signed this pledge, no? Many schools, groups, communities, and provinces have assumed this commitment. Registration indicates a concrete commitment to undertake a journey towards integral ecology. And this means designing a plan that will guide the journey. It's not only we sign and then we do our life the same as before. No, we have to have a plan. Because through the plan, we will see that we gradually assume this integral ecology mentality. In conclusion, when Pope Francis came to us at the chapter, one of the messages that he gave was this: Mary is the attentive woman, fully embodied in the present and solicitous, a caring woman. In this way, may you listen attentively to reality, grasp situations of need when the wine, that is the joy of love, is lacking, and bring Christ, not in words, but in service, in closeness, with compassion and tenderness. And I leave you with these words of our Mother General, Mother Chiara Cazzuola. The General Chapter 24 is not ended. Now, the story continues of each FMA, of all the educating communities in the places where we share life and mission together with the young and the laity. We will truly accomplish this and bring fruit if we are docile to listening to God, to His Word, to reality, to people, ready to do whatever He tells us. Only in this way will Jesus be able to continue to transform the water of our life into new good wine, giving us the courage to be persons and communities that generate life, to face the challenges that we will meet, and to make operative the choices we have indicated. I'd like to propose some questions for your reflection, personal or as groups. From what I've heard, what new or old idea or ideas continues to resound in my heart? It could be a question, a challenge or invitation, or an affirmation. What can I personally give or contribute in order to make our educating community life-giving for the children, adolescents, and young people? How can we, as educating community, engage young people to live a life with purpose and for others? Thank you so much, and have a good journey together as educating communities, lay people, whom we call lay mission partners, young people, and of course, the Daughters of Mary Help of Christians, journeying together for fullness of life of our young people and of all of us. Thank you so much. May Mary Help of Christians accompany us always in our journey, and God bless.